Welcome back to Echoes from the Temple. I'm being joined today by Monte Plaisance, second time. If you missed that first video, I'll put it at the top of the screen where we discussed his work, Scrolls Manetho, Church of Thessaly, and just a bunch of topics on the occult and magic itself. So if you haven't seen that video, go listen to it, go watch it. But today I wanted to bring him on to discuss his upcoming Kickstarter program for his new re-release of the Scrolls Manetho. Uh, over the past few months, I've had conversations with Monty, and there's a lot that's being put into the book that wasn't in the book, the previous release. Um, Now, the previous release has been pulled from market. There are a few copies lingering around, but it's not really something you can get your hands on. Uh, this new release will be an amazing piece to have in your library and to put into practice. So, but the best way to explain this is just to bring Monty on to let him talk about it and just explain it. Also, the details to the Kickstarter program. But without any further delay, let's bring Monty in. Monty, welcome back.
All right. Morning.
Uh, for anybody that doesn't know who you are or hasn't watched my previous video, which I will link to up at the top of the screen here, you want to introduce yourself a little bit, just, who you are?
Uh, yeah, I guess my name is Monte Plaisance. I am the uh, founder of the Church of Thessaly, or the Thessalian tradition of Hellenism and theurgy. Been doing theurgic work and magical work and other things for over 30 years now, and getting ready to put a publication out that I will consider my magnum opus, I guess. The culmination of everything that I've learned over the last 30 years, plus 30 plus years, combined together into one volume and one experiment that was done back in 2008. More than that, but 2008 is when I started the actual experiment. The seeds of that were planted like 2000 and be 5 years before that. So 2003, 2002 is when I
Okay.
really started it.
Yeah. So for those of who don't know, this was discussed in pretty much great detail in the first video published. Uh, that work being the Scrolls Manetho.
Right.
Um, since we had discussed it, you have also decided to make some additions to the work itself before publication, and recently you decided you're going to do a Kickstarter. So, what are those changes that you have decided?
Um, I, I took Scrolls of Manetho off the market pretty much almost immediately after I put it on the market, um, because I realized that what I had written at that point in time was fresh out of the experiment. For those who didn't hear the original, the Scrolls of Manetho uh, began as an experiment with the Greek magic papyri, which I had acquired in the year 2000 and began studying uh, from a magician's perspective and not from a historian's perspective. And I think that's one of the key things that is going to be the difference between Scrolls of Manetho, the book, and what is out there for most people with the PGM, is that this is written from a practical standpoint, and there's a lot of people that talk about practical theurgy, and there's some books out there about, like, how to make theurgy part of your life, but really they're kind of just historical talks. I've read the majority of them, not all of them, of course, because there's a lot out there, but the ones that I've read, at least the more contemporary ones, the more modern ones, are more concerned with trying to apologize for some of the practices of the ancients, and trying to find ways around doing things that in modern society might seem to be a bit questionable, so to speak, like, the animal sacrifices that were done, things like that. Scrolls of Manetho does not shy around all of that. Um, we address those head on. I give alternatives for for those actions. If somebody is not comfortable with doing those things, there are ways around it, and I do give those, but at the same time, they're not apologized for. And I think that for some people reading the book, it may come as a bit of a shock to them because I give explicit directions on how to perform those. I have performed them as they were put in the book, as they are presented in the PGM. That's how the rites were done. And so the idea of it was that I wanted to mimic as closely as I could the lifestyle um, of the people who wrote those spells in the PGM. So these people existed in a time before the internet, before phones, before television, before radios, before all of these modern conveniences that we have, before electricity. And so what I decided to do um, was to basically assume a monastic style of life. So I was in a place which, I mean, you're familiar with. You lived with me there for a while in Walker, Louisiana. I had a place with about 3 acres of land, and I shut off all the electricity. The only thing that I kept was running water, mainly for sanitation purposes and health reasons. Um, no phones, no internet, no electricity, no distractions, and committed myself to the performance of these rituals to try to find out if there was something to them. And the idea arose out of a documentary that I was watching prior to doing this, which talked about how certain animals, if they're domesticated, can shut off certain genetic attributes. Like their genes will shut off certain things that they no longer need um, because they're domesticated. And so I think the example that was there was pigs, some pigs that were brought by the Spanish to the New World during that time, North America. And they left the pigs when they went back to Spain. When they came back, the pigs had gone feral and they started growing tusks again, and they got bigger. Like it turned on some sort of a genetic click or whatever that reactivated some of their more primal genes and survival genes. And I thought to myself that maybe during ancient times when people didn't have all these distractions, that maybe we had some sort of a skill set, some sort of a genetic skill set that would get triggered um, if we went back to that lifestyle. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to experiment with that. That sounds like something, but that was one of the experimental parts of it. The main part of it was that I wanted to try to mimic as closely as I could their lifestyle. So what would it be like to wake up every day without electricity? What would it be like to study into the night by lamp, by candle, doing the rituals on a daily basis? So that's basically what I did. And I cover that process um, in a lot more detail in this book than I did in the first book, explaining my daily routine. I share the 3 phases that I thought through and said, okay, well, this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be phase 1. This is going to be phase 2. This is going to be phase 3. And I'm going to devote my time here to this. Phase 1 is going to be devoted to this. And then phase 2 is going to be devoted to expanding upon phase 1. And then phase 3 was going to be the goal eventually, which I didn't even have honestly didn't even have an end goal in mind when I started it. I didn't know where it was going to end up. And it kind of took on a life of its own after I did a ritual, which I didn't include in the first book. In the first book, I didn't include any of my journal entries, none. I had acquired, I didn't even count them yet, but there's well over 30 5-subject notebooks and binders and folders and all sorts of stuff of journal entries and notes and thoughts and visionary experiences and all the things that happened during that time period that I didn't share, that I decided this time I should probably share it. And I realized that in the first book, I never even explained why it's called the Manetho work. Who is Manetho? And Manetho was a visionary experience, a person that appeared to me in one of the opening rituals that I had performed when I finally went into the seclusion, when I turned off all the electricity and I started focusing in on the studies of the Greek magical papyri, studying in depth the works of Iamblichus, Plotinus, Plato, the dialogues of Plato, all of the Neoplatonic philosophies, and how those tied or could be tied into the Greek magical papyri. Because I think a lot of the focal point on the Greek magical papyri is on the Greco-Egyptian, but one of the predominant philosophies or schools of philosophy during that time was Neoplatonism. And Neoplatonism is the cornerstone of the tradition that I founded and that we're both part of. And so I wanted to see how this fit into that and create a working system out of it. So how does that manifest itself? That's eventually what it became. And that was primarily due to Manetho. So anyway, so I did this ritual for sort of divine revelation to kind of guide me. One of the first ones in the book, in the PGM. And during that ritual, and I was just talking to you about this. I'm placing in there for people to understand too that the ritual itself is not going to what's the word I'm looking for? Like if you do it one time, it's not going to give you the result that it says it's going to give you, right? You have to repeat it. One of the rituals that I was just adding to the book, I performed 72 times, 37 times performed it before I got any results whatsoever, even minimal results. And then 72 times before I got the actual result that I was looking for. So, but the one where Manetho came into play was from PGM 475 to 829. And it's a ritual basically just designed to give you a divine revelation, essentially. I've done a few of those. This one was the first one that I did. And during that ritual, I had a visionary experience where a man appeared in the incense smoke that I was using, and walks up to me, and I ask him, I say, "Who are you?" And he doesn't answer me. He says, "I'm a messenger." And I said, "Well, who sent you?" and he kind of like sticks his hand up like to shush me. And he's like, shush. And then he points to my statues of Hecate and Hermes on my altar, I guess implying that it was them that sent him. And he shows me in his hand this scroll. And I look at the scroll, and he's like hands it out to me, like for me to take it. And this is a visionary experience now. So understand that this isn't I want to say it's not necessarily what most people would consider a physical manifestation, even though it was technically a physical manifestation. I was in a state of mind that was kind of that in between state, which is how most of these things happen when you have a physical manifestation. If anybody else had walked into that room at that point in time, like I said, don't think that they would have seen what I was seeing, because they're not in the right frame of mind. They're not in that mindset. But so when you say physical manifestation, there's a nuance there. But anyway, he appeared to me and handed me this scroll. So when I go to grab the scroll to take a look at it, it dissolves just instantly. But it kind of, I guess, absorbed into me, like it dissolved into my hand, because at that moment my brain started just like firing, like neurons going off in my brain, like fireworks. All these massive amounts of concepts and thoughts and whirlings and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in my brain. And he just kind of smiled and he started to disappear. And I said, well, wait. It's like, who are you? And he just leaned in and he said, my name's Manetho. And to basically share what you're going to learn in this experiment. Like, make sure you don't just keep it to yourself. And so after I came out of that, and after it took 2 years of living in that seclusion from 2008 to 2010, I lived in that seclusive state, in that monastic state, with no electricity, no anything, and immersed in this study and these practices. And I kept journals of everything. So when it was out of it, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to share it, because that's what Manetho told me to do. So I wrote the first version of Scrolls of Manetho. And the problem with that book is that it was written at a time when I was fresh out of these practices. And the way that it was written almost like the PGM is written, written with the concept that the person who's reading it has done the same sort of things that I've done. So there's not a whole lot of explanation in there. It's just raw information, and without the prerequisite work and information and knowledge, it's not going to be effective. So I realized that shortly after making it available to the public, and decided I was going to take it off the market. I think there's still a couple of copies floating around out there. I know you have one, but
Yeah, personally.
this, yeah, this one's going to be written more for the beginner and the advanced. So it's broken down into different phases. There's the introduction, and then it explains in depth, in great detail, about how I came about to do this. The other thing that I've added to this particular one is a lot more of my journal entries, explaining the processes that I went through and the experiences that I had with the individual spells and rituals from the PGM. Things that I've accomplished using them, things that I have witnessed, things that other people have witnessed. You make your debut in the chapter where I talk about the catharsis ritual, where the
It was a
mist
fun
came
night.
out of the ground. Yeah, you're in that. I don't even know who took those pictures, because normally, I don't like to record ritual.
Remember who took them?
I don't remember who took them. It wasn't the person that we're thinking of, because that person was under the blanket. That person was getting the
Yeah,
catharsis, so it couldn't have been her. So I really don't know who took the picture, but I have that picture, and then I have the second picture when we did the same catharsis ritual the second time for the other couple, and the same results happened with the mist coming out of the ground. So that was the confirmation of the fact that that particular ritual generates a manifestation of mist coming from the ground, and did it twice. So that's a confirmation, as far as I was concerned, of the effectiveness of that particular ritual. And that ritual will be put in the book under the catharsis chapters. And so it goes through the introduction, and then the second phase of it is going to go into the information that's needed, talking about the 7 realms of existence. I'm including an entire chapter on the law of octaves, which you've heard me talk about many times, but I've never actually written anything down about it, and how that's what I'm working on actually this morning, is that particular chapter. I found in my journals the ritual that I performed to try to help me understand that another different ritual for divine revelation, which is where the first time I had a confrontation with the deity that I've come to call Aeon, which was the Mithraic lion-headed god wrapped in the snake, the demiurge, essentially, explaining to me, not verbally, but visually, how the octaves work, the law of octaves work. And I'm not going to get into that because that's a whole video by itself, just octaves. It's hard to explain it in words, so I'm struggling with that one right now, but I am going to include that chapter. I've also expanded on the oracle that I included. I think in the original I called it the Oracle of 5 Circles, that it later evolved into the Lesser Oracle of Hermes. And so that's going to be included in this as well. With in the original, I only listed the 5 patterns to get yes or no answers, but this time I'm including all of the secondary throws and all of the combinations of throws. So it's going to have, I think, 32 or 34 different interpretations, depending on which one's result.
It was
So
pretty brief in the first version.
yeah, I was only concerned about giving the yes or no's, but the Hermantic Oracle has expanded to the point where the Lesser Oracle is a lot simpler than there's the Greater Oracle, which is the one that is kept exclusively secret. But the Lesser Oracle, I feel comfortable now making available. So that's going to be in there as well. So that's going to be a substantial addition to the book as well. I think one of the
So
main things is going to be the journal entries. I think that is a big step for me to share that personal information, but I think
I'm
it's
excited
necessary.
to see the explanation of the 7 realms
Yeah, that's been
out,
expanded
because
upon.
I'm excited to see that, because most time, anytime you're reading information from neo, a contemporary Neoplatonic author, it's always 10,
Yeah,
and it always seems to try to mimic the Kabbalistic tree of life.
yeah, yeah. So, uh, yeah, the thing that was most profound to me during the Manetho period, during this experimentation, was the fact that when divinity manifests itself in any form into the physical realm, it invariably does it in series of 7, never 10. And that coincides with the law of octaves, and I explain that in detail in this book, how that happens. The law of octaves also tells us where we're going to run into problems and when, almost to the point, like to the letter. It will tell you, when you're doing this work, this is the point that you're going to run into this situation. And we've all experienced, anyone who's ever tried to do anything of a plan, like I'm going to plan from point A to point B, you run into moments where you're just like, I'm not feeling it today. And that is not always a lack of discipline. It is a natural course, and it mimics itself on many levels. And one of them that I use to explain it is music. So you have your seven scales, and at certain points of a scale, there's moments of what they call retardation where the note has trouble sustaining itself and it starts to dip down, and it requires an extra effort to push it back up to get to the next octave, right? And it does it in two specific spots every single time. And it becomes a half note essentially. That mimics itself in our actions as well, because we're all part of the music of the spheres, as the Pythagoreans said. We're part of that music. We're part of that scale. And so as we're moving to ascend, there's moments where we're just going to have doubt. There's moments where we're going to go, is this even worth it? And that's the moments that you have to push further. And that's the moment where the sacrifices come in. It's that extra step that you need to push to get past that that moment of where the energy starts to go down. It starts to wane, and you have to pick it back up to keep ascending the octaves, to keep going higher. So in the second, like I said, the first part is the introduction. The second part is explanations. I think in the original book I had 5 scrolls. This one's going to have 9 scrolls. So there's a lot of additions. One of them is going to be, talks about all of the magical instruments that you have to have, just like I had in the other one. A lot of recipes for incense, for inks, for other stuff like that. And then it all leads up to the final chapter. The final scroll is the Manetho initiation, which takes 40 days. And it's a series of rituals that have to be done. But you have to have all of that knowledge from the beginning up to that point for it to be effective. And I think that that's what was missing in the original version of the book. Was I focused on the ritual, and it's done in series of 8. Okay. And if you think in what I was just talking about with the law of octaves, an octave is 8. I call them the ogdodes, or the series of 8. There's 5 8-day rituals, 5 sets of 8-day rituals. You perform it 8 days in a row. So it's 1 octode, 2 octaves. 40 has a significance. I never explained in the original book what 40 has a significance for. But when you think in the law of octaves, and I said divinity manifests itself in series of 7. So why am I using 8? If you look at the scales of music, which is an octave, it starts with do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. And then the 8th one is do, which is the first one repeated at either a higher or a lower octave. So there's really only 7. The 8th one is the next level. And so at each octave, you're going to increase your octave spiritually. So you start base-wise, and you do that first octave. Then when you get to the 8th one, it elevates you to the next level. It pulls you up 1. So your soul is vibrating at a higher frequency now. And then the next one higher, and the next one higher until the 5th. And that's as high as it goes, because by the 5th one, you're starting to touch on the demiurge. And physically, that's the point where the universe itself kind of takes over, and you achieve, if it's done correctly, apotheosis. And eventually, if you keep pushing, you'll achieve henosis. I have not achieved henosis yet. That's communion with the one, for those who don't know what that is. Apotheosis is communion with divinity, with the gods, and that has been achieved. And I talk about that a lot. There's an entire chapter devoted to what apotheosis is and what you can expect to experience from it, and what are some of the misconceptions about people who have achieved apotheosis. Because there's this concept, I think, among a lot of modern practitioners, that a person who has achieved apotheosis becomes some sort of divine being in the flesh. And that's not necessarily how that happens. Apotheosis is not a continuous process. You don't achieve it and then suddenly you're divine, right? You achieve a certain level of divinity. But you're not divinity in the flesh, like all the time. You're still human. You're still material. Your soul vibrates at a higher frequency, and your life does become profoundly different. The way that you see the world becomes profoundly different. The way people see you becomes profoundly different. But you're still human. You still got to get dressed. You still got to go to work. You still got to function in society. So you can't sustain a state of apotheosis indefinitely. It's little parts. It's stages. You receive moments of apotheosis where you connect to divinity and divinity manifests within you, which is usually done in ritual. Outside of
I'm
ritual, you still have to live.
glad you mentioned that because I've seen it mentioned before, and I've seen other I'm not going to put names, but other authors, other people that have kind of set themselves as authority figures over magic and
Hmm.
everything else, that nobody ever clarifies that.
Yeah,
It so it's never truly understood to
right.
some extent.
Yeah. And I think the problem is that we and I'm not saying this in a negative way, but there's not, in my experience, and I've been doing this for a very long time, I've not met anyone that considers themselves an authority in all of my years, other than my mentor in the Golden Dawn, who I think has achieved apotheosis. So we don't really have anyone to pattern ourselves off of, because once apotheosis is reached and that awakening happens in your mind and in your soul, it is exhilarating and profoundly depressing at the same time, because you look at the world and you realize just how, excuse my language, how fucked up things are, how how disconnected the majority of humans are to their true selves, and that we live in a world that we have the ability to solve every human problem, but we don't, because ego and selfishness and all these things are rampant in people because they have no connection to the divine. Everything is materialistic. Everything is about material things. And it becomes profoundly depressing because all you want to do is shake the entire world and say, wake the fuck up. And you can't. And so a lot of people who achieve apotheosis just go into seclusion. They just don't interact. And I went there. I disappeared for a long time just so that I wouldn't have to cope with that. Um, and then continued my rituals and continued my things until, Hermes came in and said, "Hey, yeah, we're not going to let you do that. You need to get back out there." So that's what I started doing. Like I said, I mentioned to you earlier, I'm not sure how well this book is going to be received, because I don't pull any punches. Okay, this is a book that's written by somebody um, who is a practitioner. My first and foremost concern is the practicality of the work. Is it practical? Can it have an actual effect? Does it have an actual effect? And I spent 2 years finding out what works and what doesn't work. And you get people that say, well, what works for you may not work for another person. And while I do tend to agree with that sometimes, for the most part, if you apply yourself to the lessons, it'll work for you. You just have to apply yourself to it, and I mean, I was your teacher for a long time. I don't have a lot of sympathy for people that don't want to do. Um, and I don't have a lot of patience for people who don't want to act on what their goals are. I see you
That,
laughing.
that is an understatement, Monty. Um,
But the thing that back to what I was just saying is when that apotheosis hits, you see other people's potential. You know what humans are capable of, the greatness that we are capable of as a collective, and we just don't. And so it becomes very frustrating when you see what people can be, and then you see them just making excuses out of fear or laziness or whatever to just not become the best version of themselves because it's just too much work. I get frustrated with that. And so sometimes that comes out as anger, or it comes out as me being cold-hearted or not understanding. And it's, I mean, I know how many times you've heard me say your divinity trying to manifest in the flesh, fucking act like it. Stop being so weak. And this isn't like a toxic type, be strong 24/7. I understand we're human, we're going to have weaknesses, but we have to work through those things as best we can. It's wonderful to have a good cry. The gods know I have wept rivers of tears for things that were going wrong in my life and things that I did wrong and wrong decisions that I've made. I'm not claiming perfection, but I never stopped trying to better myself. And I want that for every student that ever came to me. Just continuously try to better yourself. Keep doing the work. Don't stop it. Keep working. Because what happens is you reach those moments in the octave that are the energy is lagging, those retardations in the frequency. And if you don't push yourself past that, you're going to just the octave is going to fall. You're not going to continue to rise. You're going to fall back down to the level you were at, or at worst, go even lower. So it just requires action and work. That's one of the big things for me. So, like I said, I don't know. I don't know how well this is going to be received, but this is going to be my magnum opus. Also, um, I decided to do the Kickstarter, which I know why you wanted to do this talk, was to talk about the Kickstarter. Um, the book, when it is published, and hopefully we get enough support from the Kickstarter for me to get it done the way I want it to get done, will not be sold on the open market. It will only be available privately through our organization. It will not be available on Amazon. It will not be available in bookstores. It will not be available anywhere else. Because
it's
I don't
not
even,
mass market.
yeah, it's not meant for mass market. It's not meant for that. It's meant for serious practitioners and seekers. And so that's one of the things that also it's going to be an exclusive volume. And I'm hoping at some point it'll have multiple printing presses. You know, um, but
So,
this is my effort to share it with the world, I guess.
so what's the benefits for those who are interested and are willing to help support the Kickstarter and get it going?
We have in the openings part, for people that can't afford a whole lot, we have to make a pledge without a reward. But anybody who makes any kind of pledge is definitely going to get some personal feedback from myself, some thank yous and acknowledgments. I think the first one that we have in the different levels is the neophyte level, which is a $20 donation, and that person would receive the PDF excerpt from the Scrolls of Manetho, which is the ritual where Manetho appeared to me. It has the original from the PGM and then the interpretation that I did and the changes that I made to it to have it work for me, that they can perform as well. And also, again, personal contact and thank you from me. The second one is a scholar. The scholar level is a $75. They'll get a signed paperback edition of the Scrolls of Manetho and a thank you note from me. And again, personal, I'm probably going to start a private. I was thinking about doing this. I don't know, maybe get some feedback from you. You know, I'm not very tech savvy with a lot of stuff, but I was thinking about starting maybe a private chat group or something for the backers where they can talk to me whenever they like, which I kind of enjoy. I like talking to people.
I think that would benefit a lot of people, regardless, even after the work comes out,
Yeah,
for those that are interested in doing the work and having that ability to come to you like, hey,
yeah,
I'm not quite sure about this. Can you explain this in a
yeah.
different way for me to understand?
That was my point, and I would have that for anyone who backs, even if it's just a $1 donation. You can come in and talk. But the third level is what I said. I did that one already. Yeah. Okay. So the next one is the cleric level, which is $150. And that's a deluxe hardcover edition. All of the photos and everything will be full color. It'll be you've seen how our textbooks are for the church. It's going to be basically that format, except I think smaller. I'm not going to do the 8.5 by 11, a smaller version with color, and it will be signed on the first one as well. The paperback will also be signed, and also the cleric will get a bookmark that'll be containing some of the sigils taken from the PGM protective sigils. And also they will receive in the cleric phase a audio recording of the pronunciation of all of the words of power or the barbarous names that are used in the book. So that'll be me chanting out all of the words and how to pronounce them. And the next one is the thaumaturgist, which is a 250. You get the hardcover edition plus the audio file in the book, and also an oracle reading through the Oracle of Hermes. And then the patron is a $500 donation, and they get all the previous rewards. Plus, they have their name included in the book. There's a page that's going to be called Patrons of Magic, and every person who donates that amount will get their name in the book as a sponsor, and they will also receive what's called the Manetho canopy, which during the final initiation of Manetho, which leads to apotheosis, is a canopy that's hung over the altar that you stand under to receive the initiation. You've seen the one that I have, the new one that I have that came out really
Yeah.
nice. So we have those sourced. And then the final one is the theurgist, and that is all of the other ones, plus the it will be a one-on-one with me consultation to discuss any of your personal practices, or it won't be a group. So whoever donates the last one, which is $1,000, you will get a personal one-on-one, and that one's limited to 50 people. You will get a 1-hour session to ask me and discuss with me anything regarding the book. And that can be Um, you know, at any time after you get the copy of the book and you read through it, if you want to have a one-on-one with me to really go over things in depth, and that would include the oracle reading and all of the other stuff as well. So you basically would have me as your personal instructor for an hour. I do have some stretch goals associated with it. So if we have the stretch goals, if we make the stretch goals, everyone from the thaumaturgist level to the theurgist level will get the stretch goals at no additional cost to them. And so the first one is if we reach our first stretch goal, which is 30,000, I will produce a limited edition set of ritual tools inspired by all of the practices in Manetho. It will include a handcrafted sitting tripod, an incense burner, and the divine talisman that's detailed in the book, which is a big deal. That divine talisman is excellent. And it will be consecrated and done by me for you. So the 50,000 mark stretch goal, if we reach that, we will commission a short documentary where I will explore the practices and interviews with other practitioners and scholars about the work, and traveling. We'll make a journey back to the old Tomino's grounds and see what it looks like now.
I would be
So
interested in seeing that.
yeah, so that we can show where it all happened and the reality of it. And then the final one is if we reach a 70,000 mark, we'll host a series of live interactive workshops on ancient magic and theurgy available exclusively to all backers. So I know in the original I said from thaumaturgist to theurgist, but if we can reach the 70,000 goal, I will host a series of live interactive workshops on the PGM and other papyra, magical papyra, that will be available just to the people who backed the project. Excuse me.
So, having gotten the first copy of Scrolls of Manetho from the original, I really hope we can get to that 70,000.
Yeah,
That would be amazing.
yeah, it would be.
Uh, but, so if anybody wanted to reach out to you, what would be the best way to contact you?
Probably, it would probably be Facebook. I know a lot of people are like, the Book of Faces, but um, Facebook Messenger. I mean, send me a friend request. Just let me know in the friend request, hey, I'm interested in Manetho. But they can also go to the Facebook for the church as well, which will be direct to me as well, Church of Thessaly on Facebook, and send me a message. And I can tell you now that I get a lot of messages from people that aren't members of our tradition or members of our organization. Um, I don't gatekeep in that context. Like, I don't care where you're coming from. If you've got a question and I can answer it for you, I'll give you my opinion on it. I'll tell you what I think. You don't have to be a student. You don't have to be, you know, anything along those lines. I've kind of been mandated by Manetho to share what I've learned. So I do that as best I can for anybody who's willing to listen.
I definitely appreciate you coming on. And I hopefully, we can get this Kickstarter to really kick off.
Yeah, it's going to go live on the 21st. That's our new year, uh, our celebration of the Festival of Prometheus, and I figured that that would be the best time to start a good what am I looking for? I need more coffee. Um,
It is early.
yeah, a good start, good day to start it. Start the new year off with the project.
So, uh, we're running out of time on this call.
Yeah.
Monty, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
No, everybody check out the link to the pre-launch page and go ahead and follow that pre-launch page. It gives you a notification on there to let you know when it goes live. If you're interested in helping out with that program, with that project, by all means, go and check it out and donate what you can if you can. And anything helps. And for those who are wondering, real quick before we get off the subject, the money is going towards artists to do the cover and to do some of the illustrations on the inside, also the publishing. Like I said, it's going to be privately published, so there's not going to be a whole lot of profit on that for us, but I want to make it a nice book. So that's why we're doing it.
Okay. Uh, and on the 21st, when it does go live, I will be putting a post into my YouTube community page to let everyone know that it is live.
Okay.
Uh, but I will also be linking Monty's information in the description of this video. So, Monty, if that's it, I thank you for coming on and give me your hour and a half, 2 hour time for your morning.
Hey, we cut it short today.
Yeah.
All right, man.
All right.
All right, bye.